Hey, Maria, thank you for coming in. You've got such a great background of impact and servant leadership and purpose across innovation and capital and sustainable business and so much more. So thank you for coming in and sharing your insights with my audience.
Thank you, Stefan, for having me.
So Maria, um, we talked about this before, but just as a bit of a reminder, because it's been some time since we last talked, maybe you can give maybe the major inflection point in your life, maybe one or two that made you who you are today.
I'm trying to have a better clarity, but definitely there's a lot of different traumatic experiences throughout my development phase when I was younger. And many of those have had with my compassion for people, specifically for children at my age, where I've had my empathy tested in a way at a very young age, and I think that's an accumulation of different events that kind of shaped a big form of my state. So
Maria, can you give us maybe some of your professional career moves early on? I know you were in wealth management and things like that. Can you step us through some of that past narrative of the different jobs you've taken on and things like that? And then we'll finish off with Earth 5.
Absolutely. So basically, I started my career pretty much as a free spirit. I was recruited to join different companies, but I never felt part of this traditional system. I always wanted to be on creating new things, providing new creative solutions. So I started my career helping companies expanding within their business development, basically. My first tech company I worked with back in 2004, it was quite early on with a Swedish company. And I started escalating from there, helping different innovations to scale their businesses internationally. So I've been pretty much as well an environmentalist at heart and work with various different companies. So I don't have this very typical linear professional career.
You've got an early sort of career narrative of working with various companies and business development. The state of the planet was always a concern of yours, and so that was integrated in some of your early journey. You also worked in things like in wealth management, I believe, as well, right?
I'm educated in wealth management. So that's my degree. And I haven't worked directly with it, but I've been helping companies them with investor relations. So that's my main sweet spot. Deal sourcing to a network of investors as I, created my network across the years, and helping those companies to connect with investors. But my main passion has been going mainly to companies who are impact-driven, working within smart solutions like smart cities, Internet of Things, and so forth. So it's always been, my humanitarian aspect of me has always been there in the backlog and everything that I do, especially when it comes to tech. So wealth management, no, not directly, but I've been providing a network of investors with deal sourcing.
So you mentioned earlier that your kind of educational background was in finance, or?
Yes, I have a double degree. I have my bachelor is both wealth management and business administration.
And then you indicated that you spent some time then on working with startups and things like that, right? Then in fundraising, business development, startups, sourcing deals from VCs, family offices, institutional investors. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, of course. So basically, about 10 years ago or so, I've designed the pre-VC Accelerator program where innovations come together in different workshops, like different cohorts. It was simply a hybrid model. And that's how I started to get access to a lot of deals, a lot of amazing tech companies. And from there on, given the fact that I had, multiple network of investors, so I was supporting these companies in their investment fundraising strategies and connecting them to investors. So that's kind of what I did for a while.
And then what caused you to segue into what you're doing now?
Basically, it's always been for me the environment and humanity at my core with my mission and everything that I do. Hence, where I was really interested in learning about people and learning about cultures, and at the same time about technology. So that's why I've worked with over hundreds of tech startups, and as well investors from all over the world. And having, I call myself recently, because that has been amplified here in Austin for a reason, but I do call myself a solution architect, that I create creative technological solutions for complex problems and so on. So basically, it's always been in my backlog that innovation has been pretty much driving my curiosity of learning. How can we merge technology, but at the same time, make sure that we're bridging the gap between humanity, spirituality, and technology? It's been in my backlog for many reasons, and many of the traumatic experiences I've had at a younger age, and the growth that I've had. So what it led me to do what I'm doing is part of the mission that I feel I'm entitled to, and I'm connected on a soul level. We can actually tackle on climate crisis or solve world most pressing crises such as water, food, and energy, basic infrastructure needs for humanity using advanced technologies. And clearly that's nothing that I can do by myself. So what I did, that's where the Earth of 5 Co-Creation Prize was designed for, is to bring these innovations together in order to break down the silos and advance innovation to solve the world's most pressing crisis, because we can solve the water issues. We can solve multiple of the climate crisis if we actually innovate further and compete less. So that's kind of what the prize, the co-creation model, is about, is how we can unite, and unity is a crucial element here if we want to prosper in terms of Earth resilience, and that's a big part of what Earth of 5 stands for.
So you got this background in business and in wealth management, but you ended up working in different companies doing business development, things like that. And then you ended up getting into the startup space and helping companies with their fundraising, helping startups source, capital, but also with their business development, and then working with VCs and family offices and institutional investors and sourcing deals. So you've always been sort of in this innovation part and helping tech companies in the startup phase. And then you decided to do your own startup called Earth 5. So Earth 5, what I'm hearing is you're fostering co-creation from, combining sort of like water and food and energy security, and thinking about AI as well. So what does Earth 5 do then? Do you try to help startups and things like that? Like, can you name some of the pillars of Earth 5?
So basically, the main mission, or let's say how we do it, to start with that, is that first we identify the potential from the applicants. Some of them, they reach out to us or they've been nominated throughout the application process. Others, we reach out to them to invite them to join. So we've had we launched the Earth of 5, just to give you a context. It was launched about a year ago. And we've already had the first edition that's been completed. We had approximately 100 nominations, 55 applications, and 33 of those 55 applications were shortlisted. And out of 33, 16 made it to semifinals, and only 7 won the prize. So what do they really win, and how does it really work? So let's start with how it really works. So when we identify the winners of the prize, when we mentioned that there are 7 of them, the way it works is that these 7 companies collectively, as they take that collective actions together towards a certain, obviously, category of the prize. So we have the highest category that's called 500 Lives. And that category is focusing on how can we use advanced technologies at a very fast scale to improve the lives of people, using the new metric that we integrated at Earth of 5, which is return on lives. And return on lives is a metric that we support these innovators by merging forces. How can they actually amplify the outcome of the innovation with the, instead of return on investment, which is the main metric that's used for any investment or any category in the space, it's actually how can we measure that and the improvement of the number of lives, and can we hold accountable those innovations that do not consider the quality of all lives, either human lives or even Earth life. Earth also has its own life, which is, it's clean water, it's clean air, and so forth. So to go to the way more concrete, I'll give you an example. We have the highest winners of this category, 500 million lives, the three amazing entrepreneurs and companies. One of them is based in Florida, and they're cleaning the water from pesticides and so on in the process. Another one that's called Pulse Industries. Second company that's one within this collective, it's called Drip Data. They're based in Denmark, and they do AI-driven data collection and so forth, so real-time data for water monitoring. And third one is EvoDrop, and they're focusing on agriculture, where they deliver the clean water to the agriculture in a more efficient manner. So these three together, they teamed up so that everything clean the water to more quality of water, monitor the water, and at the same time deliver to agriculture with the hardware that is needed. So combining forces, they didn't have the chance to do that together, but now through the prize, they got the chance to be working on this together for the next 8 months. So what happens first is that we identify the potential of these companies. We recognize them. That's the first part of the prize. But however, recognition as an award is not enough if they don't have results that actually these guys are really doing the work. So now they have 8 months, and the next 8 months, they're working together in order to prove that co-creation, and then in order to improve the numbers of lives through these innovations and advance and innovate further, because there's way beyond of what we know, what we can innovate when we bring brilliant minds together. And that's what the prize is about. So just giving this example to give you a better context. And basically what they went throughout this 8 months is the support from our Earth of Five small team, but we still support them, and with our extensive network to be on stage on big stages where also they'll be featured to investors. Everyone's looking for funding individually and for the co-creation model. And we support them mainly with investment readiness. We support them with having the safe space to collaborate together. And hopefully in the long run that we're going to see these results coming up by end of the year, beginning next year. They'll be awarded again next year with a real award based on the highest number of return on lives than any of these companies that they have been participating in the prize. So the prize is tied up again to a measurable results, and the prize is tied up to support them in scaling and support them in their funding journey, so they can scale faster and they can co-create faster to markets.
So Maria, I mean, that's a really fascinating journey that you created with Earth 5. So what you've done is a global call for companies that are interested in or have solutions in water, related food, and energy security, and they have some kind of AI embedded in it. And then you had a fairly large number of applications, and out of that, a finalist got selected. And then out of that, you created an environment where you said, hey, you are the finalists, but can you work together and work together to do more, but combining all of your capabilities? And you created an environment or a platform where they can come together to work together to combine their solutions, so it's even more profound. And you also created a metric called return on lives, which is how many lives are going to be impacted through things like break solutions of microplastics, desalination, water security, it could be an ag tech and more. And that's what they're working on now. So you got these companies working together, and then later on this year, they're going to say, here, this is what we've done working together. And this is how we've been able to measure up to the standard of return on lives. We could say we've impacted 50 million lives or 20 million lives or something like that. And so you had your first cohort through nominations. They went through a selection process. The finalists then, which were really the winners, they went and were recognized. And then you had your first kind of launch in Davos in 2025. Is that correct? And what happened there?
So in Davos, we presented the winners on stage during a gala, and we awarded them with the recognition of the potential that they have teaming up as a collective winners. Again, what makes the prize unique in its per the way how it works, it's mainly focusing on the collective action, and that's how we believe we can advance and solve the world water crisis. For instance, as an example, if you focus only on water, is through these collective, as you mentioned earlier, by uniting people together. So basically, that's what we did in Davos. We had them on stage, we gave them the recognition, awarded the winners, and it was amazing. And and we look forward to be back in Davos next year with the highest number of return on lives from the winners that they have been presented on stage this year.
Now, you also indicated, so you did that event in Davos, and and you indicated quite successful, right? So
it was, yes.
And now you're going
successful. We're really grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, and then from there you've been at South by Southwest, right?
Correct. South by, we were here just, on the note to learn about the ecosystem here in Austin. We didn't necessarily do anything for the prize winners. However, we are back in Abu Dhabi. We just closed an MYU with AIM Congress, which is the largest investment network and investment platform. It's been running for over 20 years. And we have Water Pavilion and Future Cities in the Future Cities zone. So we'll be obviously, featuring our prize winners. They will be presenting there. And we hope for the best to give them as much exposure as possible throughout this year. It's part of the program that they basically won with us.
So you had a very rewarding time then, sort of meeting with people at South by Southwest, right?
Yeah, it was actually, I must say, Austin is really, it's great here. There's a certain caliber of intelligence, and it's, you feel that both spirituality and technology is merged into one city. And that's how I would maybe describe Austin. And during South by, you see, that's quite busy, but now I'm still here actually for the next 2 weeks, understand what's really going on in Austin, like why is it so special? But definitely it has, from what I learned, a certain, vortex right here that's attracting a certain caliber of people. And it's been really great, to be honest. Definitely, you feel the different vibe here in the US than in Europe. People really get things done. People really move fast, as opposed to Europe, being based in Barcelona originally. You definitely see the different vibrational level, and things move properly here. Like people get things done. That's for sure.
So you really have been enjoying the experience in South by Southwest in Austin.
The experience, it's great. The thing that I would say I was disappointed is that there's not enough impact, given that it's such a big event. But I had one of my colleagues and one of our jury members, Nusha Ajami. She's amazing in the water industry. She was actually in Austin, and she told me that she was here literally because they had 1 or 2 panels around water. And that's something, so it started to be the topic, and hopefully we can see more impact and water panels next year during South by, given the fact that they opened up the route to it. So I think that's the only kind of a little disappointment that I had. I wish I had a bit more of impact driven, panels or events or side events. There were literally none. It was mainly focusing on media, entertainment, VR, AR, different type of tech, but not necessarily impact.
And then you indicated you're in the Abu Dhabi, Dubai, sort of Saudi region, right?
Yeah, we're planning to have our prize winners on stage during the AIM Congress. And as we just signed the NYU as knowledge partners with AIM, the largest platform for both public and private sector. And it's been the AIM Congress has been doing their events for over 20 years, and there are thousands of participants. During AIM, we will be helping with the water pavilion there. It's their first water and innovation pavilion, focusing, in the future city zone. So we look forward to it, and obviously our prize winners will also be participating to present their technologies and what they're doing, and in the hope that they can get funding as well.
And then where do you go from there?
After Abu Dhabi, we're hosting a small investor reception in Dubai at one of our prize winners, actually studio, which is an amazing studio. So Way Out will be hosting us at their studio and showcase their technology, and we're inviting investors there. And after that, actually, I either go back to Barcelona, pretty much.
So what's your kind of big dream for Earth 5?
It's not really a big dream. It's mainly, I would like to see that as a community-led initiative where all communities can get support. I mean, we see co-creation is becoming right now a norm, and that's where the way it should be. We not only, hopefully not to only break down silos between innovations, but also advance it in a level that it's borderless, meaning that innovations from all across the world, hopefully in the future we can see technologies between Israel and Lebanon and UAE and all of that even working together towards solving certain geographical innovations that they may need to invent further together. So hopefully Earth of Five becomes the platform for unity, where it's more about obviously awarding the innovations that they improve the numbers of lives. And that's why we have it's tied up to the return on life metric that we designed. And hopefully that unity will help to humanity to solve large problems in the future. It could be AI transition. It could be anything that's gonna, put us in terms of, like upcoming water scarcity. Right now, we're working towards that. In the future, it might be AI transition. How can we upskill with resources? We need people to come together to solve the problems. Hopefully that would turn into community-led platform for co-creation. And I hope in the near future, potentially we can have hubs, physical hubs where people really get together to do things like that, this kind of work. And the prize is mainly, let's say, it's the recognition, it's the award, it's the sense of recognition for those who actually really achieve great results, and it's also a sense of motivation. But definitely Earth of Five, in the hope that it can form and support humanity with unity with technology, and in order to solve critical problems, because we are about to face many new critical problems that we haven't predicted yet. As in the wave of transition, there's a lot that we need to learn to work together. And if we can serve this platform, then that's something we'll be happy to lead.
So, Maria, you're interested in writing a book too, right?
Yes, I am. And I think I mentioned that to you in our conversation, Stefan. It's been very challenging to finish the book, and I haven't even had a chance to. I'm planning to publish it by next year, in 2026. I still have the biggest part for me is the closing of the book, the final chapter. That's been my main challenge. So yeah, we'll see when I manage to finish the last chapter. I just haven't had the inspiration quite some time, and it's been on my desk to do for a few years now.
So it sounds like you're kind of well into your book. You've written most of it. You're just
Yes,
doing the final chapter.
the final chapter, correct. It's very much like sci-fi based book in a way as well. I keep on tapping more further into my creativity, and I think it's going to be an interesting one, and it's an interesting closing that yet to be developed.
So let's kind of go over your narrative here during this chat. You indicated you had this interest in business and in wealth management, so you studied it, but you didn't end up working in that area. You worked in various companies in business development and so on. And then you ended up working actually in the things like smart cities and city deployment of smart cities. And you ended up also with working with startups in their fundraising and business development. In fact, over 100 startups sourcing deals for venture capital, family offices, institutional investors. You worked a lot of deal flow and funds and things like that. But because you were always motivated by impact and sustainability and making a difference, and that led you to this idea of Earth 5, which is all about how can I incentivize people to work on this idea of Earth 5, which is centered on water, food, and energy security, but using all of the developments in AI and technology that are occurring, because you've always had an interest in technology. So you created Earth 5 to instantiate a prize, and you did through your team, you were able to do a call for nominations for, a prize centered on things like microplastics or desalination, water security, AI-driven sustainability. And from those, through a judging process, you were able to get that down to finalists. And then you brought the finalists together and said, okay, what I'd like you to do now is form teams and see if you can combine what you're doing to do maybe a bigger kind of solution. So not just you as an individual, but you as a consortium working together to solve some bigger problem, working together. And you got teams to actually co-create new kinds of ideas to work together. And out of those co-creations, you selected finalists, and they got recognized because you had sessions at Davos in January 2025. And what they're doing is they have a period of time this year to conceptualize even further, actually implement working together and give a metric of return on lives that you created. So how many lives have they saved? So you're going to do further recognition of what you started in 2024 to 2025. Now, what you've done is you've gone to South by Southwest after having this great success in Davos, and just to kind of see what the environment was like and the innovators that were there. And you found it really captivating. You found it's a great innovation community, very progressive in terms of executing on ideas, not slow, very quick, wanted to take action. And you thought that was a great contrast from the work you did in Europe, which is more kind of thoughtful, whereas you found that South by Southwest was very fast and more action oriented. You're taking all of those relationships you formed there to continue your movement on Earth 5. And now you're going to be in the GCC region, which is, like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and so on, to continue to move that's even forward. And you talked about this big event called AIM, which has been around for quite some time, which allows investors and governments and people like that and startups and solutions to work together to see if they can advance working with each other. So you're going to be there with your Earth 5 prize winners at essentially this from last year into January to continue to do their work. And so you're pleased with that, and you're following that journey. And then behind the scenes, you've been writing a book, and you're kind of stymied on the last chapter, but I know you'll find time to complete that chapter. Does that capture what you've been doing these last few years?
Yeah, that, and there's another thing that I'm not sure how soon I want to go public with it. I'm also building a software right now at the same time, which is focusing on infrastructure. So we want to support government agencies reform the existing infrastructure to a more climate resilient infrastructure through simulations. In the next few weeks, as we trigger on the pre-beta basically. So that's something I'm really excited about. It's not only to reform existing infrastructure, which is on average 50 years old globally, but also to support communities to get access to innovation and funding, everything from indigenous communities for nature-based solutions to communities in need, like in Africa, to make sure that they have the infrastructure they need for water, food, and energy. So I'm still in the same space, but right now I'm building the software to do that. What I'm doing at Earth 5 has helped me a lot as well, to understand the market in order to be able to do what I'm doing for the software.
So Earth 5 is an NGO. It's a nonprofit. And it's designed to provide an ecosystem for recognition of climate impact kind of solutions, and helping people with solutions to scale in some way. And then you're also building a startup which is working in adjacent space. So Maria, is there any other sort of and this will be the last question, are there any final questions or recommendations you want to leave the audience?
I want to just share with you regarding Earth 5, it's a social enterprise today. So we are awaiting for a formal nonprofit statement. So just to clarify that part, hopefully we'll get that soon this year. And anything else, I mean, as I shared with you a very interesting conversation in our first conversation we had. I think, as you know, that my main interest has been in how we can use advanced technologies such as AI into solving the world critical crisis. So I would say definitely, I still say we need to draw attention to AI and the regulations around it. That's most probably what I would leave everyone with. I would say governance is extremely important in what we're doing, and that we are responsible in whatever we're shaping the future for our grandchildren, is that we are the responsible generation to shape it in the right form, basically.
So Just, and you indicated it's a great correction, by the way. Earth 5, you said it's a social enterprise. So you're planning to make it a B Corp or something like that? Or?
We're applying for the nonprofit statement. I'm not sure what it's called in the US. I think it's called C or something like that in the US terminology.
Right. Yeah. So you're applying for nonprofit status.
Correct.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So it is a nonprofit and you're just applying for the status. So Maria, thank you for coming in and sharing your insights and your journey with us, and look forward to seeing your journey even, expand further. You got a big vision. You definitely have energy, and you put a lot of time and soul into this programs, a series of programs, and you've made it a life mission. And you never know, you may end up with a Nobel Prize in Peace for this work. So thank you again for coming in.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Great pleasure to speak to you again. And I really appreciate it. Look forward to our conversation next time. And thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.